over and over and over, voting for the president that should be casting votes for the state, both legislative and judicial. No one votes for the judges. That's why no one thinks to turn over the ballot and understand that they're actually party driven. But it has remained.
That's another travesty, though.
Well, it remained as it is because of the districting and the people that do vote and don't vote. Those factors influence, the various areas, and it is so yes, the districting. Okay, back to the main topic, which was memorable moments. In 2017, we heard from Stephen Slightly. Jimmy Powers had the redistricting optimism, right? Things that's what got us off. Steve's back. He's got his. Who's going Horseshack? Go ahead. Some people get that. Some people get that. Good. See, old reference.
Up your nose with the rubber hose, Mr. Carter.
The Dana Nessel event. That was a.
He's saying
that was a great
law.
night. That was a great night. That was Steve, you did a great job, you and the team, and
there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. I think there's some disappointment originally that there was not a lot of
way
support.
more successful.
Right, and what had happened was she had this
packed.
The campaign had some deadlines that it needed to meet to be able to really warrant and justify going forward. And I knew this, and I know it's like I trying not to, but there was like a testing point for her to be able to continue as a legitimate candidate. And I don't know. She told us that we helped her get to there and get over the line, and it just made this. And that was we knew, and I knew that there was a lot of pressure with us being the second to last week. I think it was before that. Like if we didn't do it, like it's a Friday night, there's only 3 remaining real nights where you can get a big crowd. They're going to pay and raise some money. So doesn't have, it could be any place. Like she could go, and so it was great that everybody turned out and really supported it. And I don't even like the whole process, but for her, we're going to rock it as and continue to support and talk about as much as we can. Yes, great answer. There was that Jeff Frazier protest song, which I think was a great. Do we have that on video anywhere? There's got to be somebody. It's like there's a Zapruder tape.
I hope it is.
All right. Alan is apparently.
I'm ready to. I think the best moment of 2017 was turning in 350,000 petitions with the Secretary of State for what people are calling RMLI, or regulate marijuana like alcohol, to put that on the ballot, and we're hoping to get that certified and approved through the Secretary of State within maybe a couple months to know that it will for sure be on the ballot in 2018. But just the very fact that they turn in that many signatures, I think, that's a momentous event and something that I think will change our history here in Michigan.
Yeah.
And, who knows, maybe at some point down the line we can adopt the idea or figure out the technique of the gerrymandering committee and get it more formally enshrined in the Constitution, because you have to know that once RMLA is voted on by the people and it will be passed, the legislature will tinker with it the way they've tinkered with the Medical Marijuana Act.
So that they can get back to arresting people.
Okay.
It's been amended 10 times since 2008.
3.
3 times? No, more than 3. 3 times in 2016.
In areas or times that it has happened?
Or different ways, different
3
acts
times
that they have passed that
3
affect
times.
it one way or
3
another.
times, maybe more that I'm saying when they opened up the act and did things that changed. It's happened in 3, right? Am I right about that? There's 3 separate.
Well, I guess it's debatable what you consider, affecting it. For example, passing the Improper Transport Act.
That is not in the MMA. What are you talking about? I'm talking about a 3/4 vote.
Yeah, but it refers to medical marijuana.
Why would you even say that? That that just invites a disagreement.
It just shows the way the legislature takes
I disagree to the structure of the argument you're trying to draw me into. That's just completely ridiculous.
All right.
Structurally, if we're talking about the MMA,
the entire
amendments
premise,
and he brings up from 754.
It's been rejected.
And it's
been repealed already.
And it doesn't apply.
Alan,
it doesn't apply to the water on boats. Did you know that?
What?
Did you know that?
What doesn't apply to the water on boats?
The illegal transport law didn't apply to only for land.
Okay, well that's good.
Oh,
doesn't matter.
That's good to know. So
Doesn't apply to
you
anything
could transport it on a boat.
But you can tell that to a Coast Guard official,
Yeah,
who has no requirement of probable cause to enter your boat because he might be doing
the safety inspection.
right. Interesting.
And also because you're on navigable waters, aren't you under federal law then?
I mean, but still, does that trump the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution? As I'm being told, this
Yeah, might as
code of Coast Guardian folklore.
If you're on federal land, no Constitution.
That's not.
well. You
No
can
Fourth
have
Amendment.
the Constitution when you're on the land,
All right, we're
boy.
getting sidetracked. Let's get back to the special days and special nights. Who wants to go next? Oh, so you went. Jamie, do you have anything that you... Okay.
Well, I like seeing the response to people after this very bizarre year of seeing things get out of control with government in Virginia, New Jersey, and Alabama, and all the things that have come together to set up some advances we can make for next year. Dana Nessel, obviously, and I agree with Alan and Jim that legalizing marijuana and getting gerrymandering under control will take us a long way as well.
Excellent. You're talking about specifically, like there was this, what became almost like a national election, but the thing that was going on in Alabama, there's some like pushback and some momentum in Virginia, right there. Like I think they got that you're talking about, like that kind of just.
Yeah, I think that kind of response, and there's been a lot more activism and advocacy on a lot of issues, and people realizing that they have more of a voice and coming out in bigger numbers to vote. And if that continues to be a response, and I think in part to this out of control government, bizarre shit going on, and lack of concern for anything, then we might be able to roll that momentum into 2018 and make some great advances. I mean, it'd be a home run to legalize, to fix gerrymandering, and to have Dana Nessel be our Attorney General.
We would see some extreme changes.
Well, it's interesting
marijuana
whenever you have
policy.
I mean, most of the time when the executive branch, it's very rare that the executive branch and the legislative branch are all within the same party. It could almost be potentially, too much. But there's been a constant antagonism there as it goes, and as I think it's playing out here, there's always like a reactionary period that kind of puts the other party in some kind of authority, and I think we're seeing some of that going forward. And it can only drive more people to want to get involved, Jim. I think that's what you're alluding to. When there's a villain, it brings people out. I think it's in a way it's the best thing that could have happened to the other party, whatever the fuck, whether it's good for the world. I mean,
The more of our candidates that we have in power, the better off we will be. The government works for us, but only when we are running the government, and that is
Let me
how we
tell you
change it.
something. I have no faith in any government official. It's all a bunch of BS. Unless you're really talking about things that I care about.
This
and when you
system
say it and you
can't-
talk about it in a way that you don't care what the criticism is, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing, like no other candidates are playing it straight. I mean, can it be done what she's asking and wanting to get done? Of course it can, and she can have as much possible influence as there could be, and no one else is even suggesting that they try that, right? I mean, it's not even like an effort that has ever been tried or undertaken, right? So her desire in speaking about it in that way is, I don't know, the best thing that's on the table. I mean, the only thing that could ever, and to begin that as a path of a reform, let's start with fewer police encounters with citizens by not turning a traffic stop with marijuana into the need to arrest. Or
There are going to be candidates.
That's not her. I'm not saying that that's her policy. But like the idea of avoiding human, encounters over marijuana and focusing those resources on the opioid epidemic. Chet, sorry, go ahead.
There are going to be candidates in every race that are going to be able to focus the entire race on our issues, I think. So whenever there's more than one candidate going for a nomination slot at the convention, there will be a candidate there that will force all of the candidates to talk about our issues with marijuana policy, with policing, with the judiciary, and with the legislature too, if we want to talk about that. I don't know. Probably not.
I would almost. So we were still on our thing. I was going to change topics. So Jamie went. You've. It's hard to. If you have something.
Oh, she's so terrible.
What's that?
She is
legislator.
horrible.
Horrible. Legislator.
That's right.
She's horrible.
Our guest from Grow Green, I wanted to talk about the Manuel case as a moment in, 2017 as a moment, right? I would agree with that. I mean, I think that can't be that. We were talking about this this today conceptually that how it's kind of like the idea of the concentrates. How can it be that an interpretation of something that's in controversy and really can only be defined as a gotcha, a moment where government official who doesn't have the authority is going to decide whether you're immune from an arrest or not, and the manual case without the manual case, it's all usable. It's all usable.
Freshly harvested.
It's freshly harvested. It's 12 pounds wet, and and the idea that is how it's going to be, and they weigh it and throw it in a bag, and that's your number. That's your number. Carry it with you, and that's what you're going to be defending. I remember, just as an example, a case that the judge at the Section 4 hearing, I tried to get a hearing. He's like, Mr. Kumar, I find it hard to believe that the 14 pounds the police say your client had was what the voters of Michigan, blah, blah. But it was all like, it's wet and chopped up branches and stuff. And we had to have a Section 8 hearing. And, the amazing part of that case, I think, which is the most fascinating, was that the dilemma of the statutory interpretation of usable as being the volume limitation and only that, and that what would be counted for your volume limitation weight is only usable, and what is not usable doesn't count and is invisible. I mean, for purposes of
the statute's silent on that. The statute doesn't say how much you can have. It says you can have 12 plants, and it says you can have 2.5 ounces.
You are protected
usable.
from immunity
But it
so
doesn't
long as
say
you
what-
did not have more than 2.5 ounces of usable marijuana.
Right.
So what is not usable
Right. It
does
doesn't.
not contribute to the evaluation of that weight.
Yeah.
That keeps you within compliance. That which is outside of it is not and should not be considered, and it is not a contemplation for purposes of immunity. It doesn't
Right.
exist. It's just what's usable. This is a phenomena. I can't, because for all of eternity, the contemplation of what was not usable, it's all usable.
Yeah. Well, they could have written the law to say that you could have 2.5 ounces usable and say a pound that's curing that's not
No.
usable.
No.
They could have. All right.
This law says
I'm saying could have. They didn't. I know.
leave
what this law
them
says.
alone.
All right. The other.
That's what this interpretation. Leave them alone.
All right. The other
Stop being stupid. Stop saying all marijuana is usable. Have you ever used marijuana? No. Do you know any patients that have it? No. Do you know there's a definition of the law? There is no definition of the law. Did you hear me tell that story at the beginning? Did I? This is deja vu.
Yeah, the other great-
So listen to me.
Yeah.
That is the interpretation of the law. Who is making these decisions? That pea-brain, that person whose brain is this tiny, who hasn't read the line, had the audacity under oath to say there is no definition of usable marijuana in the law, and that's who was responsible for kicking in a door, taking down plants, putting sick people in jeopardy of not being able. That is.
The other great thing about manual was the open and locked the enclosed and locked requirement is not stringent and absolute. And in that case, he was receiving clones in his garage, so his grow room was open. He had keys in the door, but they did not. So in effect, his grow room was not locked, and that did not stop him from getting immunity in that case.
What you're suggesting is that in light of the fact that he was within his volume limitation, the not locked and closed was not a factor that precluded him from getting to the medical use because which they let him get to that, and then there was no evidence beyond that. What you're missing also, which I think is really critical, is that it was known at the time that he was receiving plants.
And who was that expert? Chris Conrad.
Really? It was a bad expert. It was. I don't remember reading his name in the opinion.
Authored one of the great treatises, actually, on marijuana that we use, but wasn't a good witness.
Yeah, that really hurt their case.
Yeah.
Saying that in 4 days it was
you get to
pretty
talk
much.
to like 30,000 patients and caregivers, and when they're all trying to figure out what